right. Um, yeah, so strengthen and mobilize. I like pairing those two things together because they serve each other, right? Like we want to stretch, we want to have more of the like restorative practice at the end of the week. I feel like at the beginning of the week, which for me is usually Sunday, is like let's shake shit up, let's get like ready to move. It's kind of like meal prep. Like you're not winding down from the week, you're like, hey, what carrots do I need to chop, like what stuff do I need to prepare. So that was kind of my intention with the design of the cadence of these classes. And yeah, today's focus will be on hamstrings, not just low back, but really the entire back line. Not from like a kinetic standpoint as much, not posterior chain in terms of like linking all of the things together, but really we're going to focus on breathing into the back, of filling in the back, lengthening the back, strengthening the back, working a little bit of, like I mentioned, the bladder line, which you know a lot more about than I do. But Thursday we worked with kidneys. Today I want to work a little bit with like bladder. Next Thursday we're going to kind of get into more like digestion, like solstice, like super chill yin stuff. So hopefully that all registers today. And we're going to start in a warm up on your back. So we're going to be doing kind of some stuff to get the hamstrings and the glutes fired up and also just get movement back into the spine. I know waking up on a Sunday, it's not always the first thing that we do. So let's, yeah, let's create some movement. You can come all the way down onto your back, keep your feet pretty close to your hips. We're gonna first just lift the shoulders and the low back off of the ground using your head to push down and just kind of create like some wiggles. And when you replace your shoulder blades back on the ground, try not to move them again. So you're kind of in this like stacked position. You can bring some attention to your ribs, flaring them up as you breathe, squashing them down as you release the breath. Give a couple like foot slams or bounces to your feet, just get those guys woken up. But we'll take the arms out wide to either side of your mat and just allow your knees to start to twist. Open to one side, open to the other side. Could be slow, it could be fast. Mostly I want you to focus on, again, keeping the ribs kind of stable and letting some movement happen through the pelvis and through the the middle and low back. And also getting some attention into the arches and the outer edges of your feet. So as the knees come to one side, you'll see one foot is connected to the inner line, one foot is connected to the outer line. This whole practice has, some intention of stimulating those points along the bladder. So we're helping to kind of take that water that we've cultivated, like, the winter elements, and hopefully squeeze it and juice it and process it and get it ready to go away to be eliminated later on. All right, so bring your knees back up to the ceiling, plant your feet on the ground. I'm going to break this move down into two parts. The first is to lift the hips, so you'll push down into your heels, elevate your hips. Not a huge amount of arching here in the mid back, so try to keep the ribs slightly down. And then I want you to take your left hand. I like to point the thumb up, like I'm giving like a hiker's thumb. And you're going to reach that arm up and across to your right shoulder and even come up onto your right shoulder. See if you can tap your thumb on the ground behind you. Come back to center, lower the hips, and we'll do that on the second side. So hips go up, now right arm lifts. You're bringing that right thumb way back behind on your left side, back behind your head. And down again. We'll do 5 of those on each side. The goal here is to get extension through the hips, a little bit of extension and rotation in the back, but mostly just to start syncing up your breath, opening your eyes, turning your mind on. Again, it doesn't have to be super slow or super fast. Find a pace that works so you can get that full range of motion. Maybe last one on each side. Feeling good? Oh. All right, when your feet come back down, your hips are neutral, bring the knees to chest. Small circles, trying to kind of rub the sacrum and the back of your hips into the ground. 2 or 3 times in one direction and then pause. See if you can use very little of your legs here and a little bit more of your arms, like you're actually cooking, you're stirring with a spoon, guiding the knees in those circles. All right, now we're gonna rock a little bit up and down. I'd like you to bring your heels and toes together, so you're pointing the feet. Wrap your hands around the front of your shins. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, push your knees away, chuck your chin to your chest, and see if you can kind of rock up and just touch the toes to the ground. And then rock back and get a little lift. So tailbone lifts. That momentum is what's going to create action. So you're pushing the knees away and then lifting the hips up. Doesn't have to be like a really strong movement. It's just tension through the knees, tension through the arms, holding that tucked body position. What I like about this is it feels really good. And it's already getting head, neck, shoulders, low back, sacrum, kind of that same line that we're going to work the whole time. Yeah. When you come up and you find a moment that you can pause, do so. Take another full breath and start to lift the collarbones, not only up, but forward. Think about kind of presenting your chest. And then while we're up here, exhale and really present the ribs back. So round your spine a lot. Let's do twice more. Inhale, lift, present. Exhale, round. Try to bring a little of your awareness to the back of your ribs. So not only exhaling completely, but also kind of stretching into that space. Cool, last one. Okay, you're welcome to come over to hands and knees or simply just turn around and come to hands and knees. You can take your right foot forward, left toes tucked, and let's bring both hands inside, setting up for like a lizard lunge. Lift the back knee off the ground, and as you inhale, take your right hand, reach it up to the ceiling, twist open. To exhale, bring the elbow to your instep, getting a little bit more rotation. We'll do that 3 times. We're going to revisit this position later on, so it's a nice way to kind of set yourself up and just check how you feel in this position. Do you feel stable, balanced? Is it tight or loose? Are you too mobile? Do you need to create a little bit more like stability by drawing the feet and thighs closer together? Or are you looking for a little bit more mobility, a little bit more space? Let's go ahead and switch to the second side. Take your hands to the ground. Step back to a plank. Really lift up onto the tiptoes so you feel weight come through your fingers. And we'll just do a couple little pulses. Pointing the toes to shift your body weight forward. Flexing the feet to shift back. When you shift back, go ahead and lift the hips like a downward dog. Inhale. When you exhale, step your left foot forward. Set up for that same world's greatest twist. Both hands frame inside of your front leg. Let's breathe in. The left arm reaches up to twist open. Exhale, elbow glides towards your instep of that leg. Notice the buoyancy that you can naturally create here. As you exhale, you almost want to sink and get heavy towards the ground, sinking into your hip and shoulder. And then as you inhale, you can feel you're filling up, you're reaching up, you're lifting, you're elevating and expanding. So come back down, frame the outside of your foot, step back to plank. We're going to walk the feet slowly up to the hands. Try to keep your legs mostly straight. When you get to the point where you need to bend or you feel the hamstrings, shift your body weight back to your heels, and then slide your hands back behind you and get a nice forward fold. Allow your head to really settle down. So sometimes in the forward fold, we have the tendency of like kind of lifting the torso, lifting the trunk, and that's all good, but I'd like you to really let your head hang out. I'm just resetting my little camera here for just a second. Got a little wacky here. There we go. All right, from that folded position, I'd like you to take your hands just right in line of your toes. I'd like you to try to straighten the legs, but while you do that, think about your tailbone. Push it up and back. Like if someone was pulling your hips in a harness, they're pulling your tailbone up and back to create the space for that length in the hamstrings. Squeeze your quads, so lift the kneecaps, and then lift your ribs so they're right in line with your sacrum and your shoulders. In yoga, this would be like half uttanasana or a half forward fold. Send a little energy from the crown of your head, right where your head is, maybe like the curve before it gets to your forehead. And then send energy back out through the heels, through the tailbone, through the back of your hips. Now from here, if this is tight and you feel any pain in your low back, invite that softening of the knees, still contracting the lower abdomen, still lengthening the tailbone. So your whole upper body is long. When you take your hands out wide like wings, elbows can be straight or arms can be bent. And we're going to lift up from here by pushing into the ground. So push into the mat, stand up, straighten your back, head towards the ceiling. And then we're going to come right back into that position, slowly lowering. Send weight into the heels, hips, back, head forward, chest long. Just until you get the stretch in that hamstring area, and then back up. A nice visualization here in these, what we're calling good mornings, is if there was a band around your hips, you're trying to push the band forward as you push the floor away. So let's do about 2 more. The arms are wide only so that you can really feel supported and expansive through the back body. So getting a little bit more of the yang, that fire energy to warm us up. Go ahead and come back to your forward fold. Tuck the chin, relax, shake, shake, bounce, bounce. And then go ahead and hands find your shin bones. You're going to round your spine now, drawing the kneecaps forward, pulling your body up like a snail. And we'll do a few of those body rolls. So as you come back forward, you bend the knees, you fold. As you come up, you shift the knees forward, you send the hips forward, you roll it up. Try to do it nice and slow. Yeah, keep going. And one more time, as you come all the way up, you can take your arms over your head. Take a huge breath in. We're going to exhale, bend the knees, and throw the hands to the floor. And then inhale, stand tall. Exhale, drop. Inhale, stand. One more. Drop. And stand. All right, yeah. Kick your feet out. Little wiggles, little wobbles. Okay. Feeling warm? Hopefully. Yes. We have 2 circuits that we're going to go through. 3 to 4 exercises are kind of combination sequences. We're going to do between like 8 to 12 repetitions. This is where you get a little autonomy to decide what feels good. What does good mean? I want you to feel like, since especially we're not using weights, I want you to feel like you're doing enough repetitions and with enough, consistent movement that by the 8th or maybe 10th rep, you feel your heart rate slightly elevated and you're starting to feel just a little bit of like the burn or the sensation of the muscles getting a little fatigued. I don't want it to feel super easy, like, oh, I'm only doing 3 of these, but I'm really moving slowly. That's good. We want to find kind of the combination of ease and effort again, and a little bit more towards the effort side today. So circuit A, we're gonna go for a combination move of a deadlift on one leg into a lunge, because we're training the whole back side of the leg, which inherently means we need the front side activated too. So I'll walk you through the steps. You can come into a standing position, shift your body weight to your left foot, and I want you to take your right heel, so flex your toe up so your heel is kind of pushed down into the ground. And imagine you're skateboarding. You're like sliding that leg back till you point your toe. Notice what automatically happens in your front leg. You just kind of bend the knee slightly. So try that a couple of times. Lift the front toe, which is the right. Slide it back like a skateboard and pause when you get your toe on the ground, and notice, is your front knee slightly bent? Are your hips behind your kneecaps, right? That's the action that we're going for. From that position, we're gonna step back into a lunge. So back foot is down, back knee lowers, and I want you to reach your opposite hand and imagine you're holding onto your shoelaces. So we're getting that little rotation and pausing to load this position. We come back up, we're right back where we started, okay? 8 to 10 on each side, or 8 to 12, whatever you want to do. So practice that with me. Here we go. Big breath in, slide it back to that kind of warrior 3 deadlift, find your low lunge, hold, and then back up to standing. Balance, lunge, and back up. Balance, lunge, hold, and back up. About a 1 second hold on each side, or each repetition. Paying attention to that long line of energy that we cultivated earlier. Heels, hips, head. Lunge, reach, stand. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. 8, starting to feel the left leg getting a little burn. 9. My focus is also keeping the weight distributed evenly through my stance foot. I'm not trying to balance just on my toes or my heels. Last one. Good. Shake, twist, rock it out. We're gonna just swivel over to face the other direction. Same exact exercise. Set up on the right leg, left heel is gonna reach back. Let's pause on this first repetition just to find both hip bones facing down, squaring off to the floor. Find the reach, find that little bend in the front knee, shift the hips back. Then find your low lunge. Front hand reaches to your opposite shin or shoelace. Stand up tall, hips drive forward. Inhale. Warrior 3, lunge. Got a little off balance there. Stand back up, take it slow. Find it, hold it, power through. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. 5, 6. You could be going faster or slower, but it's really up to you to take ownership of each little position. Kind of like the clock going in a circle, it does stop at each position with control. About 3/4 of the way through, starting to feel the burn. I'm noticing my right toes are contracting a lot. So I'm going to slow down and shift more of my attention to my heel, to my hip, to my abdomen, bracing to find that stability. Let's do for one more full rep. Hold the low lunge, power up at the top, and shake it off. All right, I'm like literally roasting already. I'm gonna turn a little bit of my heat system off. All right, now we're gonna go for kind of a similar movement, but a little bit lower to the ground. So you can come down to your hands and knees. We're gonna make this hands and knees slightly wider than a table. So your knees will be slightly kind of behind your hips or Your shoulders would be slightly behind your wrists. Come up to a low lunge. Let's say we start with the right leg. And that low lunge could be perfectly parallel, like foot right in line between your shoulders, or it could be out to the side. That gives you a little bit more agency or flexibility. That's great. We're going to go for a half hamstring stretch or Hanuman, flexing the toes up like we've practiced before, shifting the weight back. And then we're coming up first to that low lunge and then right into a crescent where you're pushing the ground away. So as I come forward, my back toes are pushing down. I'm lifting up, taking the arms overhead. So it's an inhale to shift back, long spine, long back line of the leg. Exhale to reach, shift, arch, and lift. Okay, let's go for 5 more. Inhale back, exhale forward. Inhale back, exhale forward. Now it's kind of up to you how high you take your crescent. It could be that your back knee stays down and you work on driving your hips forward and your ribs lift. Or it could be a little stronger where you're really pushing off of the ground, reaching tall and getting high. Last one. Great, hands come back to the ground, tabletop, a little rock with your hips from side to side. Just shift it around. We'll go straight into the second side. The left foot forward. I'm gonna go a little bit more parallel because my tendency is to get too much rotation in my sacrum. I'm gonna try to line it up really perpendicular to like that cross in the front of my mat. Inhale, I shift back. Exhale, push into the ground, find the extension, and reach up. It might feel awkward with that breath pattern, but it is kind of for a reason. I don't want you to overextend, right? When we lift, we tend to overextend. So by exhaling, we brace the abdomen and pelvis to get a little bit better positioning for strength and stability. I'm about 5, so I'm gonna go for 3 more. Again, the goal was not to like max out, but to bring awareness with movement, to have a little bit of effort, a little bit of ease. This last one, inhale. When you come up, exhale. Reach the arms forward, find the ground, hands and knees. Take your knees a little bit wider. We'll take a child's pose just to stretch that low back out. Head can go neutral, forehead down. Shift the weight a little bit further back towards your heels. Push the ground away with your arms so you feel the muscles around your armpits still engage. All right, and then crawl back up to a kneeling position. Yeah, getting warm, it feels good. So your hamstrings should be warm by now, yes? Probably your quads, probably a little bit of your back as well, maybe shoulders. This next one is a pretty amazing eccentric movement. Or if you have your yoga block, this would be a great place to take it not on its widest setting, but on its narrow setting. Place it in between your thighs, like right behind where the knees and the inner thighs are, so it's vertical. I want you to squeeze the heck out of that block, and I want your toes tucked back behind you. So we're in this tall kneeling position. You should feel your butt cheeks squeezed. There should be a light tuck of your tailbone, so your abdomen is engaged, but you're not rounding the spine, right? You still have that normal curve in your low back. We're gonna go on a slow is the winning mantra phrase here. So I'm gonna control my body as it comes to the ground. This is a lot harder to do alone if you don't have an anchor point. So it's gonna seem faster, but we're basically lengthening the hamstrings, right? We're pushing the body forward as the knee is going to extend. We're trying to do that with resistance. So I'll show you what it looks like. It's I'm leaning, I'm leaning, I'm leaning, I'm leaning, I'm leaning, and I'm catching myself. And that yoga block squeeze is going to be really, really helpful so that you can feel like you have something to resist against. Oftentimes I'll do this with a partner. They'll hold my ankles or my feet. If you want to get excited about that right now and like shove your feet under the couch, or if you have like 2 kettlebells, you can tuck your toes in there. That's a way to do this as well. But we're just going to go for 5 of these. Again, the goal is muscular contraction. So send your brain and your awareness to those muscles behind your knees, the long part of the back of your legs. Imagine you're really trying to slow yourself down from falling, 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 and then catch yourself, obviously, and come back up. Let me see you do it. You got a little setup there? Okay, yeah, a little sandbag or something. That's great.
It's a bag of cat food.
That's amazing. Yes. Cat food it up. That's awesome. Totally do that. I just didn't have the setup for it this morning. Do you feel what I'm getting at though? You're like really squeezing. Yes. And that's going to be a lot of stimulus, even though it's light and like we're only doing 5 reps. It's a lot of force and eccentric contraction. So try 2 more. Slow, 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 slow. Yes. Yes. Good choice. I saw you fall and then break the hip line. That's good. Last one. And even like push your toes into the ground. Yeah. You kind of feel like everything's gripping and resisting. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Take the cat food out of the way. We're going to come down onto your belly and do a little bit of opposite points of contraction. So make sure you have enough space in front of you and behind you that you can fully extend your arms and your legs. We'll warm the back up first. Bring the hands right behind the shoulders, kind of close to your lower ribs that are touching the ground. Roll your shoulders back. You can lift the legs, kind of reposition them so the knees are protected. And with that roll, we're going to breathe in, pull the collarbones forward and up and then back. And just do a couple of those little lifts. Breathing in, breathing out. Reaching up, relaxing down. Tiny contractions or pulses. Let's do 3 more. Should feel this mostly along the spine. Not a lot of like deep, deep, deep compression in your low back, but more like you've got someone holding your ribs and kind of squeezing them together towards the back of your spine. Okay, from here, we're going to go alternating arm and opposite leg. So reach both of your hands out in front of you. You can choose to keep your head lifted or potentially bring your forehead to face the floor. We're going to lift the left leg up and back. And then the right arm forward and up. And then as you switch, try not to come all the way down, but try to keep some tension each side, like you're swimming. So potentially your thighs might not touch the ground. We're going for 6 on each side. Not just aiming to get the arm and leg high, but to reach long. Like someone's dragging those 2 points away from each other. Last 2, 1, and done. Cool. Hands back. Lift up. Let's take more of a cobra position. Flare the elbows in towards your ribs. Get a little stretch through your low belly. I like to shift my hips from side to side, just a little, get a little wiggle. And then pull the belly in, squeeze your butt, lift your hips up and back. Let's take downward dog. We'll reset and we'll come back through that whole circuit. Just a big breath here to stretch out all those muscles that we just used. Relax the breath. Walk your hands and your feet together at the center. Take a breath in, lift and lengthen the legs, chest long, that half forward fold. And then from there, just bend the knees. Roll the spine up, come all the way back to stand. Okay. We're gonna go through that whole thing again because we've got time. So we're gonna just practice. Let's go for 6 repetitions each. So again, first is warrior 3 till a reverse lunge to stand. If you'd like to switch sides, so each repetition kind of looks like an alternation, that's fine too. But go and give me 6 really nice ones. Long spine, pause, reverse lunge, drive the hips forward. Same leg that you just drove forward, you can switch. Breathing in as you go down. Breathing out as you power up. Opposite hand, reaching for the front knee, shin, toe box. Last 2. Hold. Final rep. Hold. And stand. Nice, shake it out. Half Hanuman, so let's come into that kind of tabletop position, front knee bent. Going into crescent here. Inhale, reach back. Exhale, rise up. Just make a wave. Inhale, down and forward. Exhale, up and forward. Forward is a relative term slightly here. Big breathing. Power that you create in your hips and the action of flexing and extending that hip, that's where you create power and stability in your movement of all ranges, all types. The more that you have there, the more potential that you have later on. Let's switch sides. You can come through table. Reset yourself. Take that first breath in to shift back. Drive the back toes into the mat. Let that be a reference point for your stability. Keep the chest long as you shift back. Keep the ribs just slightly down as you come forward. 3, 2. Final. Hands to the floor. Step back. Child's full length. Hey, come up. You're going to find your cat litter, your sandbag, your weight, or your emotional imagination of supporting the feet to connect to the ground. So we're really focusing on that low, slow, eccentric contraction on the hamstrings. Here we go for just 5. Push down into the ground, lower, catch, reset. Drive the hips forward, lock the abdomen in, push, reach. Promise this will feel a lot harder the next time you try it with a friend, or if you have bands, you can kind of hook your feet in to the ground. It's like imaginary using the force. There's like a wall. You don't want to touch it, but you're drawn to it. All right. Good job. Last one, we're going to come back to the belly for these alternating kind of locust or Superman, Superwoman, superhero pose. Left arm long, right leg long. Lift and lengthen. Do your best to keep your head right in line with your upper arm. And then switch. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax. Hands come to your ribs. Lift up, push into tabletop. Toes tuck. You can take kind of a short down dog and then just a breath or two to walk your feet forward towards your wrists. Come into that nice deep forward fold. Let's shift a little bit more of the body weight into your toes. You can reach your hands forward and then shift your body weight way back into your heels. The hands forward is like a counterbalance stretch, so you can really press the back of your knees backwards. We'll try that once more. Lean forward, ground the toes, get a little bit more stretch to the calves, and then shift back, knees push back. Bend the knees, roll your spine up. Shake, shimmy. We made it through the first circuit. Next round is going to be a little bit more like yoga style. So we've got some downward dog, some quadruped position, and then a little bit of that transition that I mentioned from that world's greatest stretch. So we're going to be moving in the lateral plane or the frontal plane. And all of this is meant to kind of be an invitation to find strength and access your mobility, your joints range of motion. Can you do that not passively, but with control, with an active, attention to how you're moving? So second circuit, we're going to start in a downward dog position. And I'd like you to have your hands just, slightly wider than your shoulders, creating a little bit more opportunity maybe for an external rotation, just to play with a different line. When you find your downward dog, reach your heels up high and then shift your shoulders back towards your toes. So you're kind of pushing yourself more open. We're going to go from downward dog to inchworm and back 5 times. And I want you to try to keep your legs straight and try to keep pushing your arms away from the ground. So here we go. Breathing yourself forward, kind of walking that line up to a forward fold, and then walking yourself back to that downward dog. All this is doing is really creating a lot of energy and strength through the shoulders, the back line of the body. You might stay on your tiptoes, feel a weight shift into your pinkies and your fingertips. That was just 2. I'm already shaking. I'm exhaling as I come up, filling out the energy in my upper shoulders and my back. Inhaling to come back here, filling out the ribs, the kidney area, last 2. Fingertips are on fire. Hamstrings are getting lit up. Last final rep. Do your best to push strong through those arms. Get your biceps way up by your ears. We're going to land in that forward fold. Exhale, completely relax. Shake your hips up and down. Shake your hands. And then come back to your hands and knees for quadruped. That's a fun one. Like I said, you don't have to do a lot to really make a conscientious, tangible change in your musculature, in your nerves, in your brain connection, right? 5 repetitions. Now we're going to go through quadruped. So for this, you can tuck your toes. I'd like you to try to find as stable of a base position as possible. So 90-degree angles from your shoulders and wrists. Straight line from your wrists to your knees. Straight line from your hips to your knees. So you're really in a box. It's going to be challenging to keep that box for the duration of this set. So we're going to bring the right foot up and back. Flexing the knee, flexing the ankle, but extending the hip. And I want you to imagine you have like a briefcase or a plate, something a little bit heavy in your foot. I want you to lift it up without tipping it to the side, without letting your ribs twist or bend. The only action here is that hamstring and the glute firing. We're going to go for 10 of those pulses. Now, the whole time, you're also not arching your back. So if you can notice, if your ribs are flaring, pull them in. Get that long line of energy again from the crown of your head to your butthole, to your hips. My tendency is that my right leg that's lifted, my hip wants to open. So I'm really trying to keep everything square, pushing into those other 3 points of contact on the ground. That should be 10. Let's switch to the other side. Breathe in, find the extension of the hip, flex the knee and ankle, ribs and abs on, go for 10, 9, 8, 7, pushing, 6, 5, trying to be subtle in this movement, like you're really working against 1,000 pounds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Let's come back off of the hands. You can tuck your toes, shift yourself up and back into a squat. Bring the hands close to your body and stand up. Okay. You shaking out wrists, shaking out feet. We got 2 more little exercises. Hopefully we'll go through this whole round one more time. This next one is a combination of movement in this lateral plane. So I'm going to step my right foot pretty far out, like I'm going to go into a lunge. Hips shift back. My knee is kind of right over my toes. I'm going to reach that hand to the ground and reach the other hand back up behind me. When I come up, I'm straightening the leg, bringing my hips forward, and at the same time, I'm going to pivot in the other direction. And now I'm going to find that low lunge with the twist that we practiced in the beginning. I come up, I pivot, I low lunge laterally and backwards, come up, pivot, face the front. So the hand that is tracking with your lateral leg is the hand that comes to the ground. And all we're doing here is coaxing the body to be really playful and intelligent. You're moving your feet, you're repositioning your hips, rotating the spine. Hopefully doing that while you're smiling or at least breathing continually. Let's do one more. We're going to come back to center, parallel the feet, and then you'll be able to do that on the other side. I'll wait until you come back. There you are. Cool, so now the right leg is the one that bends, or whichever one you didn't do before. Sit back, reach across, big open twist. Inhale, pivot, rotate, reach. We inhale as we pivot. We exhale to get that length. Sorry, I did it the wrong way. Lateral twist to world's greatest twist. Right hip pocket to left hip pocket. What does this look like? Wow, running, crawling, picking up heavy boxes, rotating your body when you're doing gardening tasks, driving cars as you turn your body to get inside. You're always doing these types of movements. It might not look exactly like what we're practicing, but the action is there. One more. Sit low, twist, pivot, lunge, reach, come back to center, bring your body up, shake it out. I don't know about you, but I'm really sweaty. I'm feeling good. All right. Let's go ahead and come back down to the hips so you can find your way to the floor however you'd like. You want a little bit of space behind you in your practice area, so I'm kind of at the bottom end of my mat. Come onto your back. Now there's a couple options. We're going to be stimulating the back of the head, the shoulders. We in a very deep chin tuck or neck flexion position. So for me, I have some like cervical neck magic. I'm not going to go all the way back with my legs like plow. I'm actually going to turn this into more of a strength exercise, lifting my feet up to the ceiling and engaging that line from the ribs to the abdomen. If you want to keep it more chill and more, I guess it would be kind of yin, maybe, you're going to bring your feet back behind you. And we're going to do this as a very slow flossing. So it's not fast, it's not strenuous. You can have your elbows planted on your sides or your hands out like a V. Inner knees, inner thighs, and inner ankles. If you can get all three of those points to touch and stay connected, that's great. You'll start by breathing in. When you exhale, point the toes up. Again, you're going to go hips back, toes back, chin tucked, tap the ground behind you. And then as you inhale again, come back forward and tap your toes at the bottom of the mat. So your full position kind of looks more like a plow pose. I'm going to go for a little bit more lift or extension. So as I come up, I'm lifting my feet up and slowly lowering down. I inhale at the bottom, I exhale and slowly roll down. Let's go for about 5 more. Trying to keep the back body from my wrists, elbows, shoulders, back of the head on the ground connected. Even as you go here, try to find that nice, slow control. Last one. Cool. Shake that off. Hold your knees. Practice the little rock that we did in the beginning. Tuck your chin. Push the shins away. You can get a little bit of momentum 2-3 times and come up to a seat. Yeah, that feels good. Not only for time, because I want to keep this to an hour, you're welcome to come back and do that second circuit. I feel like we've done a pretty good amount of stuff for the legs. So I want to finish the session by doing just a little soft tissue work, a little massage. And I want to offer a breath work practice, but this should really only be done on empty stomach, the Uddiyana Bandha. So if you haven't had empty stomach, you could skip that one and we'll just do a breath retention, but we're going to get there. So take your hands, you can find like any comfortable seat. You can just take your hands, the tops of your 2 fingers and your thumbs are what we're going to be using. So imagine you're just kind of like rolling like a pebble between your thumbs and fingers, or like making a little piece of dough. We're going to take that energy right to the temples and right behind the jaw, so where the ear lobe connects to the jaw. And you can just make 10 circles there, soft. It doesn't have to be really hard massaging, just like a gentle, kind of moving the skin and that outer layer of the fascia there. And then you can move that down even, so now the fingers will go behind the ear and the thumbs can go underneath the jaw. You're getting a little bit of just palpation or circles there. You know, for me, my back is tense. This jawline gets very tight. So this can just be a nice way to stimulate that in a like non-sympathetic way, a way that hopefully relaxes those areas. And then also we're going to take the hands, you can now kind of use your hands like lobster claws. You can tuck your chin, bring the 2 fingers right behind your skull where it kind of rounds down. That's the occiput. And then the thumbs can go on either side of your spine. And you can make circles there, or you can kind of like do counter rubbing, like you're making little, I don't know, like you have Play-Doh between your hands, like you're just rolling stuff around. It doesn't have to be a certain way. It just should feel good. And you should notice in those areas if there's any, you know, big knots or places that are really tender, or maybe places that you don't have sensation. For me, sometimes those areas are so toned and so tight that I have a lack of sensitivity. So I try to go even softer and play the game of, can I feel that? What can I feel? How does it feel? And then you can start taking your hands along the back of your neck. I like to think about if I was making a wave, if I was like pushing kind of like a gelatinous watery mixture from side to side, and then I'm slightly pulling down. So you see my elbows will make little circles, and I'm pulling down as I'm massaging with the palms. That can feel really nice. When we get down to the outer shoulders, your elbows will drop down towards your chest, and you can actually pull down and out. Yeah, any movement that you want to do with your head and neck is great. We'll send a little bit of that love and touch out to the back of your legs, down through your feet. And then this last piece, before we go back onto the ground, we'll do an Uddiyana Bandha. And this is kind of a nice way to just squeeze everything and hold it out. Like if you've got a Ziploc bag full of goo and you fill it with water and then you like shake it around and then you squeeze the goo out and you really like hold it. Then when we allow the air to come back in, there's like space. So again, if you had a meal or you're feeling full or you're like, heavily bleeding on your menstrual period or any of that, skip this and just do a breath retention, which we've done in the past, which is like breathe in, gently hold, breathe out, gently hold. Otherwise, I'll show kind of my belly so you can see. I'm going to be exhaling all the way out, pulling the navel in and up. So you're really like creating a vacuum. I know you know how to do this, but maybe other people won't. So we'll practice the effort that I want you to do is holding it just until you feel that discomfort, like you're hungry for oxygen, like half a second longer than that, and then just relax the belly and let the breath come in. So it's not a big gulp of breath at the end. Okay, so relax your body. Hands can be on your thighs. We'll take a slow, full breath in through the nose. Empty it all the way out. Contract. Vacuum. You're contracting by pulling the belly button in, the pubic muscles, the pelvic floor muscles up, and then pushing all of that back towards your spine. By now, you should let the breath out. We'll do that twice more. Relax the muscles, let the breath come back in. Last one. Relax. Breathe in naturally. Even with like a few short rounds, Uddiyana Bandha is like doing massage on the inside of your stuff. All of that stuff just gets a little vacuum seal pressure. So now let's come back all the way onto the back. You can do the slow roll that we've practiced where you hold either the front or the back of your knees. Create a really round position. So I'm already kind of scooping my tailbone back underneath. Come up to the tiptoes. Come down with lots of control. You can bring one ankle on top of your other knee or thigh for figure 4. Just invite your outside hand to give a little resistance at the knee. So I'm kind of pushing my knee out, and the knee that's bent, I'm pushing it in towards my hand. So there's a little bit of friction there. About 5 breaths. This outer leg can either be relaxed or also firm. We're really focusing on that bent knee. Great. And then just re-extend that leg towards the ceiling. You can bend the knee, reach both of your hands up for your foot, and just give a little like downward pressure. I'm taking my fingers kind of like claws, and I'm just crimping down on the outside edge of the foot, getting a little pressure point there. Shake that one out, make a couple circles. Foot on the ground, we'll go to the second side. Cross the ankle at the upper thigh. Bring a little resistance by pushing your hand into your knee and meeting your knee with that resistance for 5, 3, 1. Release the resistance. Keep the knee bent. See if you can reach your outer foot. Even if it's not parallel, if you need to bring it inside, that's okay. You can still find the crimpy grip on the outside line and squeeze and pull. Squeeze and pull. Make big circles with the knee and ankle. I mean, the knee doesn't really circle, it's your hip, but we don't need to get there right now. Lengthen your legs all the way out. Wiggle your toes rapidly like you're very excited dolphin. You're like waving, like hello, 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 splashing. Reset your ribs and your shoulders on the ground, making a lot more broad space for your breath to come in and out of the body. And now once you're arrived in this really supported Shavasana pose, do whatever you want with your hands. I like to keep them at my chest. It feels warm, it feels comforting, gives me an awareness of where my breath is going. We're going to move the head just a little back of the skull massage. So bring your head over to one side and then chin down towards your shoulder. So you're going to get the outside of your ear and then the back of your skull. And we'll go to the other side that same way. Back of the skull, roll onto the outer back part of your ear, chin tucks towards your chest or shoulder. Come back to the midline. Now you can look up with your head. So eyes look up behind you, lift the chin up, and then do the same thing in reverse. Look down at your belly button, tuck your chin. Think about kind of lengthening the back of your head. One more time in each direction. Out to the right, massaging the skull, out to the left. Getting a gentle stretch for your neck that's really supported. Come back to a neutral position so your chin is just facing slightly up. If you'd like to take your hands apart, you can open the palms towards the sky or the lights. Allow your breath to fill up from the toes to the ribs to the nose. And allow it to empty from the top down. 3 full cycles. Filling from the bottom of the ground up and out. And emptying from that expansive, wide place down and out. Final breath. if you need to spend more time here, if you'd like to spend more time here, please do. You can just totally relax on the floor and hang out. I'm going to get up and roll to a seated position, mostly because my floor is very cold. I don't want to be on it for too long. But you can just take your time and enjoy the awareness of breathing in your body, breathing in space. Yes, welcome back.